Jehovah's Witnesses are on the move. That's right, the global health crisis hasn't gone anywhere, and neither have we. Why, there's Sister Goodneighbor, ringing a doorbell and talking to a householder who's dressed to the nines and immediately ready to have a conversation about impending Armageddon. Careful juggling those books, Sister Goodneighbor. And that's no coke-addled biker gang. That's a battalion of our faithful brothers, ready to preach the good news about the earth being restored to a paradise, and the word gay being restored to just meaning happy. Say, there's governing body helper Robert Lucioni answering the door. What's he doing home on a Saturday morning? And there's our microchip vaccinated 5G Antifa super soldiers, ready.
On May 31st, 2022, Jehovah's Witnesses announced on their official website that after 2 years of preaching exclusively via letter writing and phone calls, they would be resuming preaching publicly. However, the door-to-door ministry for which Witnesses are famous is, as of the recording of this video, still postponed. Witnesses will be preaching via literature carts, which they set up in busy residential and metropolitan areas. So what does this mean for Jehovah's Witnesses going forward? And maybe more importantly, what does this mean for my viewers who are physically in, mentally out, or PMO? It's actually somewhat significant that Jehovah's Witnesses aren't yet resuming their door-to-door preaching work, because for a lot of people, that is the primary thing that Jehovah's Witnesses are known for. But also, is it anymore, actually? The enduring symbol that Jehovah's Witnesses have been plastering and promoting everywhere for the past several years is the JW.org logo, that classy blue square with the Times New Roman JW.org font. Witnesses may now be known more for that symbol than they are for their door-to-door preaching work. And statistically, the preaching work, when it comes to just raw numbers of converting people to the religion, just doesn't work. Seeing some growth in less westernized branches of Jehovah's Witnesses, in Watchtower's home territory and in the country where the religion was founded, the door-to-door preaching work has resulted in basically completely stagnant growth, just enough to keep up with the birth-death rate of the religion for years now. And in fact, last year they saw an actual decline in membership. Not to mention, just from an optics standpoint, door-to-door preaching is antiquated. The Watchtower came up in the 19th century when door-to-door salesmen and specialty brochures and pamphlets were common ways of getting across information. Now, though, that's pretty uncommon. If someone's knocking on your door now, there's a problem, or someone's trying to get you to register to vote. One of the appeals of the door-to-door ministry, at least when I was a witness, is that you could say, because you are living in the territory where you're preaching, that you're one of their neighbors. But as more and more people are forced to live in apartments and trailers and condos, it's not a guarantee that anybody knows their neighbors, or that it would be not weird for their neighbor to knock on their door. Like the backbone of the religion itself, door-to-door preaching is a vestige of 19th century Americanism. Now, I think it's perfectly likely that once things settle down a little bit with COVID, and more importantly for Watchtower, it becomes less politicized, that Jehovah's Witnesses will in fact resume door-to-door preaching like they always have. But during this interim period, when they're only doing cart witnessing, I think it's worth playing Jehovah's advocate for a minute and seeing if Watchtower might be taking this opportunity as a chance to step back and rethinking their approach to the public ministry. As plenty of cult experts have noted, the preaching work for Jehovah's Witnesses and groups like the Mormons serves a dual role within the religion. Yes, there's a chance that it could convert new members, and that's good, but perhaps even more importantly, it solidifies indoctrination and otherizing the members of the religion itself. If you're door-to-door preaching, engaging with people about your beliefs, you are re-indoctrinating yourself constantly. You are discussing your beliefs and why they matter to you and why they are correct with the people in the territory and people in your card group. And the more doors you have slammed in your face, and let's be honest, that's going to be the majority of the people that you come into contact with, the more it solidifies that the world is run by Satan and blinded to this very obvious truth that the end is coming soon, and that the only safe place is within the group, with like-minded people who also know what it's like to have doors slammed on their faces for preaching the good news. Cart witnessing accomplishes all this, but it's a lot less time and effort for Watchtower and the elder bodies. Instead of having to fastidiously divide a map in terms of population to evenly distribute how many houses are in a given territory, and making sure that it's worked systematically and accurately over the course of a year, You can just have two people stationed at the same street corner every couple of days. And perhaps more to the point, Watchtower's safe, family-friendly image is diminishing, shall we say. And despite what Watchtower says, it really does not want its members to engage with criticisms of the religion. It specifically wants its members to avoid criticism at all costs.
Consider this scenario. The unbelieving husband of your Bible student sends his wife a link to an apostate web page and says,
"Here, you better look at this and see what you're getting into."
Well, your student is concerned. She wants you to take a look and tell her what you think. Well, that's not an option.
I've played this clip a bunch on the channel. I don't want to dwell on it too much. In this, he paints a hypothetical scenario in which a Jehovah's Witness is studying with a prospective member. The Bible student comes to them with some article criticizing Jehovah's Witnesses. It's negative in tone. Witnesses are explicitly told not to read the article, not even to know what the criticism is for the purposes of debunking it to the Bible student. Watchtower wants to paint the criticisms of the organization as raving lunatic lies from embittered apostates. It doesn't want people to know what they're actually in the news for, which is covering up CSA cases, being defunded for human rights abuses, defending in court their right to shun former members. And as documentaries and pieces about the organization become more popular on streaming services and YouTube, the more people are going to be informed about the actual issues with this religious group, and the more likely they are to confront the person knocking on their door about it. That Four Corners documentary that aired in Australia has almost 5 million views on YouTube at the time I'm recording this. There's only 8 million witnesses worldwide. Soon the amount of people that will have watched that will outnumber the witness population. If someone comes to your door and tries to pitch you on a religion, you have a pretty solid right to challenge them on that. But it's less likely that somebody who knows something not so great about Jehovah's Witnesses is going to actually come up to them and confront them just at their little street corner where they have their cart set up. When I was a witness and I did metropolitan cart witnessing, we were actually discouraged from having long, drawn-out conversations at the cart. Because if you're engaged in conversation, it's less likely that someone else is going to be willing to come up and talk to you, like they'd be interrupting almost. Generally, you are encouraged to keep things brief, to try and give them a magazine, and definitely direct them to the website. Real talk, does Watchtower actually want its members to have return visits anymore? The initial call, when you first knock on somebody's door as a witness, maybe you have that 1 in a million shot that somebody actually listens, takes the magazine, reads the scriptures, and wants you to come back. Oh my god. But what happens now when any of us are confronted with any new information, or anything that sounds like it might be too good to be true? We Google it. I can't tell you the number of times when I would have a really great first call, and then I would call back, and the person would suddenly not be home ever again, or they would be definitively not interested anymore. I once started a Bible study on the first visit. It was absolutely amazing. I couldn't believe it happened. I got the person's contact information, set up the study for just a couple days later, and in that interim, the person suddenly had a complete change of heart. Probably they did a little search on Google or YouTube and discovered, this is going to happen more and more frequently. And Watchtower doesn't necessarily want to be sending out its members in an environment where they will be confronted with good faith, ironclad criticisms of the religion. Now, car witnessing is not necessarily feasible everywhere. It's really not the best in rural territories or even in heavily suburban areas. So again, I think that Watchtower will probably try and go back to normal old door-to-door witnessing, but if I'm Watchtower's PR manager, I'm advising them to really stick to the cart thing for now. Now, what does this mean for physically in, mentally out witnesses out there? People who are having doubts, trying to maybe exit the religion, or not sure what to do. In COVID times, it's been sucky. It sucks being PMO, right? But at least it's been sucky in the privacy of your own home. You get to, write some letters over a Zoom call, and it's boring, but maybe a little bit less triggering than actually putting on a suit or a dress and knocking on people's doors and boldly proclaiming the kingdom message. The good news, a little bit, is that car witnessing is pretty chill. You are literally just standing in one spot with whoever you're with, just kind of shooting the breeze. You don't have to actively seek anyone out. You don't have to interrupt anyone's day. You're not like knocking on their door when they're trying to eat breakfast with their family. You could even kind of like troll whoever you're with a little bit and maybe try and bring up some conversation stoppers you've encountered in the ministry. Like, hey, I wrote a letter to somebody and they wrote back with some weird stuff about 1914 not being right, 607. Have you ever heard anything like that? Another cool thing is that the hour requirement for pioneers is currently still being suspended. You don't have to get 70 hours a month to qualify, so if you're a pioneer and you're PMO, you don't necessarily have to step down if you don't feel ready to do so. The fact that there's not an hour requirement currently for pioneers is interesting in and of itself, but I don't really know what to make of it. Not enough to extrapolate anything interesting for this video anyway. And yet I'm telling you that I don't have anything interesting to say about it, so I'm still wasting your time. The other thing is, we all need motivation to leave, or at least set boundaries when we're waking up, and this may be a good time to set a firm boundary for yourself. That's one of the first things I did when I started to severely doubt the religion. Before I'd even woken up, I knew I did not feel comfortable going out and preaching something that I didn't believe in. And this could be an opportunity to do that for yourself. And yes, it is scary, and it kind of slowly starts that process of people interrogating you a little bit and wondering why you're not out. But you have to start somewhere, and it's a pretty reasonable boundary. You will be less triggered every Saturday morning or whenever you normally go out in service. It really is a big weight off your shoulders, chest, mind, heart. None of those sounded right in my head, and they still don't, but it'll be a weight off anyway. Throw your burden on Jesus. In the end, I don't think that the preaching work is going anywhere. It serves a valuable purpose for Watchtower. It keeps its members busy. And we would even say this as witnesses. I remember hearing in talks and even saying in talks myself that it was loving for God to give us something to do while we await Armageddon to happen. And yeah, this keeps witnesses busy constantly. It is stated to be the most important work taking place on earth today. So if you have your members busy doing this, they're not going to be doing non-witness stuff and having fun and maybe thinking, do I really need this religion in my life? But it is ever so slightly changing, and that is interesting. And that's it.
My name is Jacob Salome, Emola Salome. I work as a truck and spent most of my life traveling all over Salome. I had problems with the truck and I was living with. I never spent time at home and practically living on the streets near the buses. But since I was always Salome, I went up to them to ask them what the Bible says about truck. I had problems with the woman I was living with. My girlfriend and I began attending Salome. Now we are Jehovah's Truck.